this this incredible energy of inclusiveness, of balancedness, of seeing things without bias. These are all ways to talk about equanimity. And this is a really important quality for these times, and for us to be able to engage in the struggles, in the really there's so much at stake right now. And having this ability to dwell in some spaciousness, that was a word someone put in the chat, is really important in order to be able to have an appropriate response to the tension and great suffering of our time. So there are these two qualities that are needed right now to meet the challenges and uncertainty in our world: fierce compassion and equanimity. So with fierce compassion, we see the suffering around us and inside of us also clearly, and we are willing to be with that suffering, to do what we can to relieve it. And equanimity is this ability to have whatever action we take come from a place of deep wisdom rather than reactivity. And they both rely on each other, both of these qualities. They work together to keep us balanced, grounded, resourced. With equanimity, we can throw our energy, put our whole hearts into understanding and being present for the suffering in our world without getting burned out or lost in the situation. And with fierce compassion, we have the strength and courage to stand up to what is unjust, what is destructive and violent, and really use our practice to get in the way of harm, or get in the way of malaise. And so both of these qualities, fierce compassion and equanimity, help us to keep our hearts open and connected to deep care that is guided by wisdom. So, anyone feeling overwhelmed? You can raise your hand. Yeah? Okay. I don't know how all the wildness of the US is affecting you all over there in Europe. But a lot of us over here are feeling a lot of emotions, overwhelm, and many other things. There are many things that are destabilizing our foundations at this moment in time. And before January 20th, there were already a lot of things, and now it's just exponentially more. And so we know that time is running out, right? to make a shift in our climate chaos, and that in addition to all of the other things happening in the world, the wars and the polarization and the rise of authoritarianism, there's also rising worry, fear, and despair around climate change, climate emergency. And these emotions, this overwhelm, this anxiety, despair, this is not pathological, it's not a disorder. It's a healthy and realistic response to terrifying and tragic realities of our time. 200 species go extinct every day. Let me just pause so we can take that in. That's very, very intense. And mostly we don't think about that, right? But every day, that's happening because of the way we as humans live on this planet. It's caused by us, particularly, I would say driven by corporations and fossil fuel industries. But we're all part of this. 75% of the Arctic ice has melted in the last 30 years. Already a 10% melt would mean a huge crisis. Half of the coral reefs in the world have died in the last 30 years. And each year we have new heat waves, wildfires, flooding that breaks the record. These once in 1,000-year events are happening quite commonly. And so there are many natural systems, many ecological phenomena that will never be the same again. Right? Things that aren't coming back. And so this growing eco-anxiety, eco-guilt, eco-grief, also eco-rage, these are natural, these are adaptive as more of us become aware of the harm that we are causing to other humans, other species, to our planet. They're an intelligent response from our psyches to the SOS signals that are coming from our environment. And so just as we would feel grief at the death of a loved one, or if our community were devastated by a natural disaster, it's a human response to begin to see that something is wrong and to mourn it, to feel worried or afraid or upset about it. And to have fierce compassion means facing this grief and despair and terror, facing it with care, with kindness, with mindfulness. And we really can't do that alone. We can only do that in community. So we really need other people to help us to be with these very difficult realities. And the thought that we are facing collapse is very hard to accept. In a sense, we have been given a terminal diagnosis as a species. Scientists, climate experts are saying We are close to midnight right now as a human species. And our tendency is to deny and resist this diagnosis. But the acceptance of the gravity of our situation can bring us peace. It can be healing and even refreshing, as counterintuitive as that sounds. So being fully open to the full range of our emotions around the climate crisis, around all the crises, right? The political crises, the fact that so many people are dying from lack of food when we have plenty of food in this world to feed everybody. That's another kind of crisis, right? Many, many kinds of crises. We need to turn towards them, to welcome them, to befriend them, so that the power that these emotions hold can be directed towards meaningful action. If we don't see things as they are, then we can't have access to the real capacity in each of us to respond. In the book, The World We Have, A Buddhist Approach to Peace and Ecology, Zen Master Thich Nhat Hanh tells the story of a senior nun from Vietnam who came to visit Plum Village, his monastery in France. She had been diagnosed with terminal cancer and was given 3 or 4 months to live. She accepted this, right? And she decided to put all of her energy into practicing in order to be fully present in each moment of the days she had left to live. So in Plum Village, she practiced being aware of her breath, aware of her steps, all throughout the day. She gave herself completely to mindfulness practice. And then before returning to Hanoi at the end of the 3 months in Plum Village, France, and she expected to go home and die in Hanoi, but before she left, a sister persuaded her to get a checkup with a doctor in France. And the doctors found that all of the metastasized cancer had receded to just one area. And she lived for 14 more years after she had been given this 3 months to live. So this feels like such an important story for our times, and I think Thich Nhat Hanh offered it really as a metaphor that if we accept what our reality is, we will have many more possibilities available to us than if we try to escape and deny and avoid the reality. And if we really lean into this moment and say, these may be the last years, decades that we have, and if we live like that, if we relate to the natural environment like that, many, many more things can shift than if we try to stay in our, with our head in the sand. So this is what he says in this book, a quote: "The Buddha taught that all phenomena are impermanent. There is birth, then there is death. Our civilizations are also like that. In the history of the earth, many civilizations have ended. If our modern civilization is destroyed, it also follows the law of impermanence. If our human race continues to live in ignorance and in the bottomless pit of greed as at present, then the destruction of this civilization is not very far away. We have to accept this truth just like we accept our own death. Once we can accept it, we will not react with anger, denial, and despair anymore. We will have peace. Once we have peace, we will know how to live so that the earth has a future, so that we can come together in the spirit of siblinghood and use all the wisdom that's available to us in order to heal our beloved green planet. If not, we will die from mental anguish before our civilization actually terminates. So again, we have a choice. As dire as things are, we still have a choice with how we use our mental energy, where we decide to go with our mind. If we go into reactivity, despair, we 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 can end our lives much sooner than they need to end. But if we live from a place of equanimity and compassion, accepting our reality, working with what the way things are, and working together to face the way things are, who knows what might be possible? What what resources that are locked down could be released that could really help us in this time. And having peace in our hearts is really key. That's what Thai was saying in the quote. Once we have peace, we will know how to live so that the earth has a future. We can't find our way to something else if we don't have peace, if we don't have the ability to look at what's happening around us with calm eyes. As horrible, as unwanted as it is, or as we may perceive it to be, we have to be able to work with what's happening, to accept it and to understand it. Like we can't understand what's happening if we don't accept it, right? It doesn't mean we go limp and give up our power. It just means we let life school us in this moment. How has this come to be? How can we create something different? We won't get to something different if we can't deeply see and understand what's happening now, how it has come to be. And if we can, be in this place of mindfulness, of contemplating impermanence, as Thich Nhat Hanh invites us to, we can come to peace with the fact that everything that arises will pass away, including cultures and civilizations. And that if we really open to that, we can touch something deeper than fear and panic and overwhelm that will actually allow us to potentially have a healing effect on whatever this process is that we're going through. So there will be great loss and great change and great disruption, and it's already here in many places in the global south. Livestock, people are dying from climate disruption, drought, food insecurity, conflicts over water, illnesses that are spreading and changing. It will intensify, but how we go through this is still within our hands and within our choice. So, an image I've appreciated from the deep adaptation community, maybe you've heard of Jem Bendel and deep adaptation. An image is that of a plane, plane. Well, a lot of problems with planes in the United States in the past few weeks. in this case, this metaphor, a plane cannot, it's taken off, it's supposed to go to its destination, but people figure out on board at some point mid-flight that it's just not going to make it to its destination, right? That plane can, people on the plane can pretend that's not the case. And then at some point it will nosedive and everyone will die. Or if people wake up and accept that fact early enough, there's a way to bring the plane gradually down so that the least harm can happen to the least number of people, right? So we have to accept that the plane cannot keep flying in order to figure out how to make the descent more graceful, as non-violent, as non-harmful as possible. And some of, part of the truth is that some of our structures, they may not, it may not be in the service of everyone for them to be saved. Maybe there's something much better than these structures that could come into being if we accept that the ones we rely on are not actually viable. Because our current structures do not support all beings to live well. Right? Our current structures, well, I can speak for the United States, but also, there is a global aspect to this too. They undermine health. They undermine community. They undermine mental well-being. I mean, these phones, they undermine health. That is true. We've created digital worlds that really aren't good for our mental health. There was a study that was done that they just came out with the results, I think, recently, that when people voluntarily took the internet off of their phones for 2 weeks, there was such a difference in people's experience of mental well-being when they stopped the scrolling. They could still use their iPad or computers for work, but they didn't have the ability to scroll on their phones. And there was like a 70% increase in well-being. And equal to medication for depression. Just getting off of our phones was like taking an antidepressant. So just to say, there are parts of our daily life and parts of our culture globally that truly undermine our well-being. And so part of accepting that some of these structures are collapsing is opening us to the possibility that there can be other systems that can be created, other structures, other cultural wisdom that can support the dignity of all life, that we may not have seen or we may not have thought of, but that can come about if we open to what is happening with compassion, with equanimity. So, Equanimity is about trusting. Trusting, resting back, opening to life as it is, acknowledging that there may be way more that's possible in the unknown than what we know. We don't need to fear the unknown. We can trust, we can lean into that and allow it to guide us um, to to really let the unseen world also be of support to us in these times. To learn to listen to that, not only what we can see, but what is unseen. The wisdom of the earth, the wisdom of many species that have, turtles have been on this planet for I can't remember, but millions and millions and millions of years. Humans have been on this planet for a couple 100,000 years. We're so much younger than the turtle species. And we think we know so much, but turtles know a lot that we may not know. And so many other species are like that. They've been here way longer than us. And they may be here way longer than us too. We have to be humble before our turtle siblings, before our other species siblings. So this trusting, this opening to this wisdom of the unseen, this wisdom in life,